Very good. Mhm.
This is where חברים, תפסתי את בנט, נעשה תמונה רגע, שים את הכיפה. Again, good to see you everyone. And as usual, I'm gonna start by giving hopefully half an hour information about the history of grapes and share a little bit how it's related to our spiritual life. Then we're gonna take you to a winery. The second part of the tour, we're gonna take you to a winery, local winery in the land, and tour that winery together. And then after that, we'll open for questions. If anybody has a question or anything would like to share. So again, thank you for coming. And good things are happening, especially the virtual tours that we are starting already. The new one is coming soon. The Herodian is coming soon. So stay tuned. And whenever we have 10 people registered, we're going to do that live tour. It's a live tour with a live tour guide. Going to bring like these places to your home, to your house. So now I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to talk about what we prepared for you about the history of the wine, a historical view of the wine, with a beautiful view to the Mediterranean Sea. But what I want you to notice here is this small, like cut rock, like the stone which is cut in the rocks. And this is a winery. It's a very old winery. By the way, I can take you back to Isaiah 5, when the prophet prophesies about Jesus, Prophet Isaiah, hundreds of years ago, when he says like God is like this gardener who plants a vineyard in the historic valley and plants it for the people of Israel. Actually, he plants it for the Judeans at that time, and he takes care of that vineyard. But unfortunately, it gives bad fruits. And this was a prophecy about Christ, because later we read in Matthew 21 about that gardener who also cleans his garden and protects his garden, and he builds a watchtower, and the people don't take care of it and don't give him the harvest. And when he sends his son, they kill his son. So this is like a nice introduction and a nice picture that I wanted to start with you to talk about this kind of vineyard, because many times God compares this vineyard to his people. So in ancient times, like how the first wine was discovered totally by accident. Ancient people, there was a bountiful production of grapes, and they collected it in jars, and they left it. They forgot it for a period, and we know that when it turns into alcohol, it's naturally. So they came back after a period of time and tried to drink from that bottle, and they found it's like their mood was altered. So they accidentally discovered that these grapes can turn from sweet, can turn into alcohol naturally. And our archaeologists actually found the first seeds originated in eastern Turkey or in the mountains of Ararat. Actually, this is in Armenia, where we know that Noah's Ark settled. And we know in Armenia, they found caves, and it's believed that this industry in the whole world started in these mountains and in these caves in Armenia. So this is the oldest wineries ever found in Armenia. Now we'll continue. Later, what happened are the Phoenicians. You know, the Phoenicians were the seafarers, and they traded, or they spread the seeds and these grapes all over the Mediterranean Sea, all the way to Europe by using their ships, by using this pottery kind of special pottery that they can rope it together all together, and you see how it can stand next to each other, and this way they can transport it to all over Europe, and from Europe to all over the world at that time. But in later centuries, the Romans used the barrels. If you can see here in the boat, there are two barrels, and these barrels competed with the pottery here. But later in the 1st century, when wine was ready to drink, they put it in this skin of animals, in this special flexible kind of animal skin that they use the wine. And you have to know a little bit of background about the wine in the 1st century. You have to know that that time, like there was like still like no Coca-Cola, no no like Dr. Pepper, or I don't know, but wine or was the drink at that time, because it was very useful. Why it was useful? Actually, drinking water in the 1st century, we know that when water is still, it grows bacteria. So it becomes some kind of poisonous. So if you pour a little bit of wine or a little bit of alcohol into the water, it purifies the water and adds to its flavor. And more than that, even in the 1st century, people, if you want to survive, you have to drink the wine. The wine is not like today that is 14 or 15% alcohol. At that time, it was used so much that they didn't have time to ferment it. So maybe it was much more sweeter wine, maybe 1% alcohol at most. But again, because food was saltier in the ancient times, you have to preserve it with salt. There were no fridges, no electricity. So you need to drink a lot of water mixed with wine. So wine was, on an average, every person would drink 1 liter every day. So it was so much in use especially in the 1st century. So it's, as I said, it's the natural product. Now today we know we preserve it in glass bottles. The glass was invented by the Syrians, but not anymore with the animal skin that it used to be in the 1st century, which I'll talk more about it, this animal skin and its importance as well. Now, we know that our climate, our Mediterranean climate, is perfect for the grapes to grow, because grapes need this variation actually of wind, of sunshine, of night, of cold, of hot weather. So the more you stress the vine, what happens is the better the grape grows, more sugar inside it. And by the way, our land, especially like in the Golan Heights up in the north, or in the Negev in the south, in the desert, we have the best wines because of these variations of temperature. And our soil actually is have enough minerals and rich minerals that that is perfect for growing the grapes in the land here. Now you have to know the grapes that we eat are different than the grapes that are used for making wine. In our land here, we have a little bit more than 20 kinds of grapes, but few of them are used to produce wine. I know the word of wine is so big, it has no end. Even like is so much useful that even from the leaves of the grapes, we can cook more than 15 different dishes here in the Middle East. But I would like together to go now through 4 stages for producing wine. All the way period, when the first stage from harvesting, all the way until we use it. Actually, I just compared these 4 stages to our human growth. So what I mean by that, the first stage is like birth and infancy. As you can see here in the rock cut stone, actually you bring the harvest. Now, the quicker you bring the harvest, actually this is the first shock that the grapes gets disconnected from the vine itself, and they put it in this big hole or pit, and people start to dance barefoot on it, and this is when the skin gets out of the grape itself, and this is when it gets pressed. And why barefoot? Because it's just enough not to break the seed, because the seed is really sour, and then all the like produce would go down into, or would be like saturated into a second pit. So this first stage actually is like our joy of salvation. Actually, when we get to know the Lord, and when we are saved, we get this joy and we are happy. But at this stage, nobody understands what is happening to us. Like our family, our friends won't understand what we are talking about. It's like also like a baby when he's born and he's growing slowly. Still he cannot talk. Nobody understands him, but we know that his father takes care of him, and we know that our Father takes care of us, so that nobody can step on our hearts, so that not to break our hearts. But again, it's a time of a stage of misunderstanding. People like gave an example from the Old Testament, Joseph as a child, when he was talking about his dreams, his brothers actually did not understand him, but unfortunately they sold him and put him in a pit, dropped him in a pit. So this is the first stage of producing the wine, right? Now the second stage, I compare it to adolescence or growing up, like being a teenager. And this is actually, you see this big steel vessels. Now this is the second stage. They bring all the juice and they put it in this big steel, dark vessels. And what happens in these vessels, very important that it moves, it fluctuates. It's important to turn all the product up and down, because this is when the first stage of fermenting happens. This is when the first time the grape juice start to move to become into wine with a special temperature. And this steel vessels, big vessels, are open from outside, because when fermenting happens, actually from the peel of the grape, there's a special kind of enzymes that start to feed on the skin first, and then start to feed on the sugar, and then it produces ethanol or alcohol, and produces carbon dioxide, which is a very bad smell, has odor. So this is why it's open from the outside, to let all this bad odor goes out, and also produces energy. So all these fluctuations is like when we are growing up in faith, and we have like different experiments in life. We are learning, we are like teenagers, we go through ups and downs of life, of work, of family, but this is when God starts really to work on our hearts and start to change us. And I compared it to Joseph when he was growing up in the house of Pharaoh, and this is when actually like he was exposed to many experiments, and even he was put in prison as well. So this is the second stage. Now, the third stage is a very important stage. And this is like when really, you see the wine is put in barrels. And these barrels, you have to know, you can spend like months there, even a year. And this is when the real fermentation takes place. Actually, this is called aging because it takes time really for the wine to get really pure, all the sediments to settle down. And this does not you don't have to move the barrel, because if you move it, the sediments will go up again. So I call it it's manship and strength. It's a time of dedication. It's a time of sanctification when we spend like we are spend like this special time with the Lord, and we submit to Him, and we become more mature. So this is like when really like needs a lot of time for the wine to get really fermented in this stage. And this is really the time when God works on our hearts, if we give Him the chance to do that. Actually, the more we submit, the less time we can stay in these barrels, because if we move, fluctuate, we're going to stay longer until we become more clear and sanctified. And by the way, this is always stored in caves so that it's not exposed to the air. So that's a very important stage. And also it's sometimes made of oak to give this aroma for the wine, to add this aroma for the wine. And this is the time, and compare it when Joseph start ruling Egypt. Now he became like the second after Pharaoh, and this was his like almost golden age, solving all the problems of Egypt and really ruling with power and strength because of his relation with his Lord as well. Now the fourth stage is ready to be used, and called the old age. And it is like the time of bottling. You can see here the machines are bottling the clear wine in purifying out all of the air and putting it in these bottles, glass bottles actually. This is the product of the fine wine. This is like, this wine is ready to, is mature, is wise, and ready to give this good flavor to the people, ready to be used. So it's the time of maturity and wisdom. And when we become obedient really to God and not depend on our strengths, but depend more on His Holy Spirit, and we start to disappear more, but give more His taste. So we are submitted to the divine will. And actually, this is when Joseph, he invites all his family, his father and his brothers, to come and live in Egypt and enjoy all the blessings of Egypt at that time. So this was the fourth stage. So to summarize what I have said of the four stages of wine, producing wine, and the four stages of human developments, or the four stages of as well our spiritual development. So first I talked about harvesting and first press. This is like our childhood, growing up as infants and babies, still don't know what is going around us yet. And then we get to the ups and downs of life, start fermenting. And then after that is really the strength and the manship. That's the aging, when we spend more time with the Lord, and we get the spiritual strength with this relation with the Lord until we are mature and wise, and that's the old age when we are ready to be used. But before we are ready to be used, we have to pass through these stages. We have to pass from one container, from the pit to the steel container, to purify all the impurities, and to put into the oak for aging, and then into the bottle to be used. But in the first century, they didn't use bottles. They used skins of animals. You have to know this skin of animals are very flexible, they are very soft, and they are always have to be full with wine. Actually, if it's not full with wine, it becomes dangerous because air may get inside and may dry this skin and make crack in the skin. And before noticing that, air would start to go into the wine and sadly change it into vinegar and won't become as a very good wine. So let's say I want to take this to another level. So let's say the wineskin are us, the believers or the church, that God had worked on our lives. We are mature now and ready to be used by Him. But unfortunately, if we allow air to come inside, air, let's say, is the sins of the world. And after all these years that God worked on us, if we allow air to get inside, then there's a danger that we become perfused, that we become like vinegar and don't give a good taste, but give a bad taste. But what is good, the wine which is inside is God's spirit. We have always to be filled with His spirit, but in case air managed to come in and cracked us and made a hole, we know that God's fingers can always come because He created us, and He can always press on this and moisture this skin until it comes new again and used again. So this is what maybe we can better understand what Mark said or what Jesus said about the old wineskin and the new wineskin. If we read together Mark 2, verse 22, and no one pours new wine into old wineskins, otherwise the wine will burst the skins and both the wine and the wineskins will be ruined. No, they pour new wine into new wineskins. We are living in the age of grace. We are the new wine in the new wineskins. So actually, if you put a new wine in an old skin, which is that's the age of the Old Testament, let's say, then as I explained, the wine changes into alcohol, produces carbon dioxide, which will ruin the old wineskin. It has to be a new wineskin. So that is very important, to pour the new wine, the new Holy Spirit into our souls, into our lives, as us as a new creation. But if air happens to go inside, but again, God can work on us again, because we're living the time in a very interesting time. I call it the overtime. You know, when there is a game and the game is finished and they extend a little bit for the overtime, when everything gets serious, when everything gets real, every move is important. I believe we are living now this time, and I believe we have to be for God to use us again and ready to be in His hands, to be a good flavor for the word among us. But again, if after all that we allowed sin into our lives, still God can work on our skins and press on us and make us flexible again. So this was like a very quick introduction to make us God more flexible for His use. But now together, we're gonna go into a winery, in the local winery in the Judean Hills, and we're gonna learn about this industry together. It's only like about 20 minutes video that we're gonna watch together, and then after that we'll be open to questions.
Okay, hello everybody, and welcome again to our virtual tours. And today we are in a very special place in the mountains of Judea, and we're going to talk about something very important, the grape industry. In the land here, there are almost about 30 kinds of grape juice, of local grapes, that we make out of it, like wine and grapes. There is more than 250 boutique wineries, but we are here in the Judean Hills in the area of Bethlehem. We have here a very special winery, and that we would like to introduce to you. And with me is Mr. Fadi. He's going to take us a tour around the place and explain a little bit more about this very ancient industry that started all the way back from the time of Noah. He was the first person to drink wine.
So, welcome, of course, to Kremizan. My name is Fadi. I'm the winemaker and the director of the winery. So this winery was established in 1885. It's the first winery that was built in Palestine. The idea of the winery was to help poor people, orphans, and to give work opportunity to local people. And of course, to ensure the continuation of the Salesian monastery, we have one in Bethlehem, here in Kremizan, one in Jerusalem, Beit Shemesh, and one in Nazareth. And they have more than one school. Here was the theological school for the priest to be. So this was the idea until now. You know, like the major part of our profit remains goes to the Salesian fathers, and only a small part remains in the winery for renovation. So the beauty of Kremizan winery is that you can see the old and the new. So here we have like two old parts of the winery, and over there two new parts from 2008. Here we have the distillery that you can see. It's from 1974. It's a copper distillery. The first one, you put like 2,000 liters of wine inside, and you start the distillation. From this one, at the end, the production will be like 600 liters from 2,600 liters only of alcohol at 65%. From the middle tank, you open it and you put the alcohol in the second distillery. This one has 74 discs of separation to purify the alcohol, to make an alcohol pure at 95%. From this, we make our brandy that is aged in the barrels. We make arak, we make liqueurs. But the first like wine that started, the Kremizan started to make from the beginning was the mass wine for the churches, also to help churches around Bethlehem and Jerusalem area. So we have one white for the Catholic, one red for the Orthodox, and also we have a grape juice for other churches.
Do you supply them till today, the churches around?
Yes, of course. We have like a certificate from the Catholic Church to make wine for the churches. Okay?
So this machine still working all the way back from
1974. Yes, we renewed it like 4 years ago, and we're restarting using it recently.
Made of bronze, so
yes, it's all copper. It's the best conductor.
and you also mostly grow your own grapes in the area, right? Most of it.
We have only 20 dunums of grapes. We buy the rest from other convents, like in Deir Rafat, for example.
Okay.
So we also try to, we have like lands of our farmers in Shafa Valley. So we planted there some grapes, and each year we take from the same people, also to help them and to secure their lands.
So it's local grapes from this area.
Yes. We
From
started
the
like
Judean
concentrating on our local Palestinian grapes from 2008. It was my thesis in the university with the help of the Hebron University. We took like 64 different samples and we tested them genetically in Italy. And we saw that from 64 different grapes, we only had 21 different genotypes. Okay, so we don't have 64, we have only 21. From these 21, we did some like micro vinifications to see which ones were more suitable for winemaking and then can compete with international wines. And we chose only 4. The like 3 whites, from which we did only 2 wines. The Buki, we did it alone, and then Hamdani, generally we did a blend between the 2. And the only red that we chose is the Baladi, which is now planted here in Kremizan. So like now 95% of our export is done with these local grapes.
Well, you have to taste it. You have to taste it.
Yeah. Please follow me. So this section here was built in 2008. Here we have our bottling system, label, and the stock of our wines. The machines that we have are all from Italy, and the products that we use for the making of the wine or the grape juice is from Italy. This machine makes 3,300 bottles per hour. We put the empty bottles from here. The first machine cleans the bottle from inside with the filtered water, and then the bottle passes through here. This head puts nitrogen gas inside the bottle to separate the wine from the oxygen. Then there's 16 filling heads. Of course, when the wine is bottled, so from down till up, it's filled. So at the end, in the neck, will remain the nitrogen to protect the bottle from here to here. Then this head over here makes the level, so all the bottles have the same quantity of wine. Then it will mix a vacuum and put the cork right away. This is why when you open a wine bottle, it's like puck. It's the difference between the atmosphere pressure and the vacuum that the machine did. From here, we take the bottles out and put them in cages like the ones behind you for more than one reason. First of all, the bottles has to stay in horizontal way so the cork won't get dry. The second one is that we have a local market and we have export. So we don't put the label unless we know where the bottle is going to, because the label, the back label of export is different than the local one. It has sometimes different languages, but most importantly, it has the importer name and information. Okay. Then third of all, it's stock wise. I know each cage has like 500 bottles inside, so we will know when to rebottle. From there, we take the bottle and we put it from here in this machine. This one puts the capsule on the head of the bottle. This head will it's like around 400 degrees, and when it comes down, it melts the plastic on the head of the bottle, so it takes the shape of the neck. Then from here we will put the label, the first label, front label, back label, and then the finished bottle labeled will exit from here. We put them in cartons and they will be ready for the market.
So it takes a good period from the moment you collect the grapes from the land until it's ready in the bottle. So it's like
yes, normally the harvest starts at the beginning of August, finishes mid-September or maximum October. Then for the white wines that we don't age in barrels, you can start selling February, March of next year. The red wines we age for minimum 12 months or 14 months, depending on the type, or maybe more also. So the red one will take a little bit more. For example, we have now red wines that are sold now in the bottle 2017, and some 19 and 20. So it depends on how much you want to age the wine.
the white wine is
We like to to be very fresh, very aromatic, acidic. So this is like the philosophy of our wine making as for white wine. Here in this section, you can see the tanks that we use for the fermentation of the red wines. Each tank here is like 20,000 liters. The smaller ones are 10,000. I will explain for you briefly the process of wine making. Yes, the first machine that the grapes goes inside is called the stemmer and crusher. So it crushes the grapes and remove the stem, the green one. From there begins the first difference between white or red. If it is white grapes, after this machine, it goes directly to the press. We press it, only the juice goes for fermentation, whereas the skin and seeds we give to farmers, they give to eat to animals, or we put it in our land as fertilizers. On the other hand, if it is red grape, with the skin, with the seeds, with everything, they go inside these tanks here. Because if you open a red grape from the middle, it's white. the skin has the color.
Has all the
So
bacteria.
we add the yeast, so we don't use the bacteria or the yeast that is on the grape. But the difference is that the color is inside the skin. So to take out the color, you have to ferment the juice with the skin. So it's the same principle of the tea. When you continue on dipping the tea inside the water, it becomes more dark. So what we do, we take the juice while fermenting from down, and we pump it with this pump here to the tube over and over again over the skin and seed. Because the yeast, does it do? It converts the sugar in the juice to alcohol and carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide is a gas that pushes the skins on the top of the liquid. So when we do this movement, we remusculate the skin with the juice, so we absorb more color from it. But the most important information also about the fermentation is the temperature control. The wine has to be controlled. We ferment the whites between 15 to 17, and the reds between 20 and 24. You can't leave the wine to ferment freely without cooling it. It will finish in 2-3 days, and the wine will have a very bad quality and also aromas. So because the yeast, during the fermentation, they produce secondary products that we also smell in the wine. So the main 3 aromas or 3 categories of aromas that we smell in the wine comes from the grape itself, from the fermentation, and from the aging, for example, in barrels. Okay. The barrel will give you some taste and also some smells to the wine. Okay. Over there, we will re-enter the old part of the winery. We have 2 sections also. In this section over here, we have fridges that goes down to -4 degrees. For example, we have now a wine in the fridge here. You cool the wine for at least 10 days at -4 to make the precipitation and the stabilization of the wine. So soon, it's now only the 3rd day in the fridge. It will be here ice, for example, and you leave it for 10 to 12 days. Like this, everything will go down. The precipitations, any precipitation that will occur in the bottle in the future will be done in the tank. Then the wine will be filtered twice before bottling. Okay, so this is one of the parts before the bottling. Like I told you, the beauty of our winery is that you can see the very old and the new. So before having a stainless steel tanks like these, they used to ferment and let settle the wine in chamento, in baton, okay? Like beer. Okay? So these we have all around the old winery. These concrete tanks that we still using when we can, and when we don't have sometimes space in the stainless steel, we put them in these. But the beauty is that in these there is no movement, no electrons. For example, in stainless steel you will still have some movement, some electrons moving. In the cement tanks there's no movement, very still. So it helps with the settling of the wine. From here, like I told you, the part built from 1885. You can see the structure of the building, the huge stones. When you enter, also you the temperature drops a little bit, so you feel it's chilly. And this is thanks to the way of building, the old ways of building. This part is the first part that was built in Kremizan. From here they started the winery, and we use it for the aging of our red wines and our brandy. So the big barrels here, for example, they are called botte in Italian. They are 4,600 liters each. Okay, the smaller ones are 225 liters. And here let the wine age for, like I said, 12, 14 days. On the other hand, over there, the brandy, we have like one of the priests long time ago, he did some brandy and left it. So now there is barrels from 32 up to 40 years age in these barrels. So they are very, very old. We took some out in like 4 years ago, and we are selling now only part of it. We still have a lot of quantities.
Because it's important, the kind of food that gives also the smell and the taste.
There is more than one kind, but the one that we use normally is oak. Yes, oak barrels. Oh, one of the oak barrels couldn't handle the brandy anymore. We cut it in half and we made some tables also.
Yes.
When we do the visits, we make wine tasting here at the end. We put like some bottles.
So you do the wine tasting here?
Yes, we do normally the wine tasting here. Then after we finish this this tour here, we go to the shop that we have here on our left. So here we have our shop. Over here we have our local wines. The name of the wines that we wrote, the name of the same grapes, so the Baladi, the Boki, Hamdani Jandali, and then we have the Cabernet Sauvignon. We have our brandy, it's 35 years. This is the Arak, 53% alcohol. We started making it in 2020. We have the liqueurs, limoncello, coffee liqueur flavored brandy, cherry liqueur flavored brandy, and also the cherries themselves that we use inside the brandy also. So you put it, for example, when someone comes to your house, some liquor with one cherry, you put it on the cake, you put it on ice cream, for example. Here we have a grape vinegar, aged also 3 years in barrel. It's in the convent because it has to be separated from the winery. Then we have here the grape juice, natural grape juice, extracted from the Dabuki grape also. And this is pure grape without alcohol. Our house wine, the sort of Bethlehem white and red, and the medium sweet wines for churches, the Messa white and Messa red. Of course, we have also our extra virgin olive oil. We have 1,500 olive trees around Parmesan area, and we make our own. We have our own oil press also, so we make also our extra virgin.
This is like really extra virgin oil. This is the oil.
For the local grapes, we like entered competitions to see if they are competitive with international wines. So we entered in San Francisco, San Diego, in Berlin, for example, behind you, and also in Tel Aviv, and they won gold medals, silver medals, depending on the year and the vintages. So this is our humble winery. Thank you very much for listening. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, great. I hope you enjoyed the mini lecture about the stages of producing wine. We trace it from very ancient until today, and we even visited one of the local wineries in the outskirts of Bethlehem, the Kremizan winery. So hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, this is the time and the place, and we'll be off Facebook.